Do you have a favorite session that you've done so far? You reckon?
I liked me and Willsey doing
Was it
what we
playing
did.
chess?
Yeah, we played chess and it was pretty short but condensed and cool, and I enjoy chatting with Willsey. We pick up what each other put down really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was definitely up there. But it is hard to look past Steve Keen because that was just in terms of the story and how the podcast came to be, quite cool.
I don't think I've listened to this one. Is it at
Steve's
the start?
Yeah, he's the second episode,
Yeah.
and he's an economist
Oh yeah.
who originates from Sydney and lives in Amsterdam. And I managed to pop over and see him for a day while I was overseas in December,
Right.
and it was just a pretty crazy sort of coming together of things for me to hear him on a podcast and then get in touch with him and then be able to go see him and then do the podcast and talk about something like this with someone who's spent a really long time, learning a lot about a specific field that relates a lot to what, this conversation's about.
Yeah.
And yeah, for those reasons, that's got to be up there. But it's hard to say one's the best or anything like that because
Yeah.
every chat's got a little bit of something of that person. So
Yeah. I
yeah.
can see that. I can imagine, and it would be interesting to because obviously it's fun to chat about, like shoot the shit with friends and like be all philosophical and stuff. But it's a different vibe when it's someone who, you know, knows what they're fucking talking about.
Yeah,
Like,
has some sort of area of expertise.
yeah. Suddenly it feels a lot more serious. Like not that the other people are
Serious.
not serious and
Yeah.
don't know anything, but it's just like, this person is like has got diplomas
Yeah, I
and
I think it's in terms of thoughts and the way that you can express them. There's a difference between going, maybe things could work in this way versus being able to say this is how things work and it could work this way because of this, this, and this.
yeah. So it's I guess. Oh, there you go. It's being confident in what you're saying, like confident in not just because you know what you're saying, but you know what you're saying is a fact.
Because of your experience with whatever you know about,
Yeah.
But that's the thing too, right? Every person has experience with what they've experienced
Yeah.
in their life.
Yeah.
So everything that people talk about in relation to this conversation is things that they believe relates to it because that's something that for them connects with the concept and connects with them at the same time. And so people can speak confidently, and I have had experience with a couple of people that have come on and been a bit nervous
Yeah.
and anxious about it and stuff, and said that they were before they got there, and said they, told me about it afterwards. But it very quickly goes from I'm gonna get interviewed or something to just like I'm just literally having a chat.
Yeah.
And it's not that much pressure to.
Yeah, and it's all cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Do you want to get your cup of tea before we get serious?
Nah, I'm good. I had one just before you got here, so I'm like, I could space it out, and then
Perfect.
yeah, we can run that back. So okay, so let's get serious.
Okay. Let's go.
Well, what's your general thoughts on the concept? How do you feel about it? Is there anything that jumps out at you straight away that you think needs to be where we kick off, or what's your vibes?
I'm happy to follow your lead. I think the whole thing is really important to talk about. There's it's always a complicated situation because it is a conversation that needs to be had, and obviously there are primary needs what we're talking about here. Like that's stuff that we don't even have to argue are needed for every single person. So it's things that everybody should be talking about, but the way that we talk about it and the way that we're educated upon it in our current society is not always so great. But yeah, I'm happy to like start anywhere.
Yeah, I think you have. And in terms of the education side of it, that's something that does come up a lot
Hmm.
because it, it's not something that it's not a skill set everybody has in terms of being able to be independent within the wild and get get their own stuff, grow their own stuff,
Hmm.
hunt their own stuff. Not everybody has those abilities. A lot of people do just depend on the system
Yeah.
without really having a full understanding of how that works either.
Hmm.
And so I think if if our choice is to be ignorant to how stuff works, we should first at least create a system that it's kind of okay to be ignorant to, you know?
Yeah. I feel like I think that's the double thing is like being ignorant about, you know, I don't know, building a house or like growing food or how to, you know, find water in the wild and all of these things that are like life skills that as developing humans we like as animals we have, but that we've lost living the way that we live. But I think it's also important that when we are talking that like also socially, if we're going to be living in this system where not everybody has those abilities to do all of that, being able to provide that for those who can't or are not in position to learn or do these things. I think it's very important. Just the way that our society is built, the fact that we're in this particular, you know, political system, there's this thing about like, not giving to the lazy and da da da,
Yeah.
capitalism, joys, ha ha ha, love it. I'm joking. I'm joking to the camera. But yeah, the thing with capitalism and neo capitalism is that like very quickly, people just want to. It's an individualistic way
Right.
of working,
Yeah.
and it is counterintuitive to the idea of wanting to give everybody an equal, you know, starting at an equal spot,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
because by nature, that system flourishes on the fact that we're not equal to each other.
Yeah. Whilst also sort of suggesting that we are by saying because there's equal opportunity, that's all people need.
Yeah, but
But
that's a fallacy also.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so do you think in terms of, because we're still sort of bouncing around education and just like the wider span of it, do you think people want to be educated? Like, do you think the majority of people would have a desire to pursue that knowledge, or do you think it's something that needs to be put into schools so that kids can learn that stuff? And if so, you know, what does that sort of look like? Not that you need to give me all the, you know, answers, but I'm just curious as to whether you think, you know, school itself needs to be restructured, or if it's like, you know, if adding those things to the curriculum or making those things accessible to young minds, like, would that sort of fix that problem, do you think? Or
I don't know if it would fix a problem, but I think making as many things available as possible is important. And like, I didn't like, I'll take the example of doing the scouts. I didn't do them, but I have quite a few friends who've done and like did scouting for like years when they were kids, and then other than that, like summer camps and all of that stuff where you go and do things. Like it's part of it's part of play, but at the same time, you learn actual life skills and you're proud of them and all of that stuff.
yeah.
And to this day, like those people that you know I knew who did that when they were kids, they do stuff like one of my good friends, she's a marine biologist and like working in nature and and you know very focused on the environment and all of that stuff. So I feel
Right.
like if you give the opportunity to do that, and even in school being able to, you know, go out go for walks, go for like a C class, or go for a like a couple of days of just like walking around and going on a track, and and being able to go through that, walking, being in nature, maybe building a fire, and
Oh
like
yeah. Oh yeah.
important.
Mm.
And also understanding that like you can't just open a pantry door and everything's right there. Like you have to you have to be able to live with inconvenience
Yeah.
sometime. I think that's important. I think if we did more of that, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And in the same sense, I think it's also important to not think that kids are stupid.
Yeah. No.
And
No. I agree.
so in school, still, like, I think it should be a part of the curriculum to talk about like social issues like that. Like, when I went to high school in France, in the last year, no, last year? Yeah, the last year of high school, philosophy was a mandatory subject
Right.
for everybody.
Interesting.
And like, not everybody gets it, which is completely fine. Like, some people have affinity with science, some people have affinity with language, etc. Obviously, but the fact that it's there, and that you are forced to, in a way, forced to go through and read these really interesting thinkers, and then coming back to class and trying to have a thought, like thoughts about it, create a thinking pattern around what was said in that text, and be like, I didn't agree, or I thought that was weird, and having critical sense about what you just read. And these things being, what makes us human, like what is reason, like what is equality, and like all of these things, and being able to read these fundamental texts and then having critical thinking about it is, I think it's very important. Just being able to do that, and knowing that you're able to do that, rather than just be like, oh, but I'm dumb and I couldn't do that. Like,
Yeah.
that's way too complicated, and I'm not even gonna bother.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of your favorite philosophies that have sort of stuck with you from then?
I'd say that one of my favorite philosophers is a guy called Albert Camus. He he's mostly known for his novels, which are like philosophical novels. And his main thing, if his main thing is existentialism. It's the term.
Existentialism?
Existentialism.
Yeah.
So it's the fact, like, it's the idea, concept that humans are born as kind of a blank slate, and then everything that you go through, you pick up, and that's what builds you as a human being. Rather than, opposite of that would be essentialism, where you're born with everything inside of you and it comes out as it goes. But yeah, so he's more on the other side, where it's through experience, it's through, you know, things that you do, things that you see, things that you feel, that you are growing yourself as a human being. And yeah, for that reason, he's one of my favorite philosophers. Very, very interesting stuff. And it's critical to see like how it can be, it still has to be a neutral stance, where you can grow in a certain way or in another way, like depending on what you do, what you see, and then again being able to change from that also comes through experience.
How do you feel about that being the basis of experience or character development? Do you think it is existentialism, where you're a compilation of all of your experiences, or do you think that there is an aspect of essentialism in there?
I think For me, it would be more based on experience, like mainly. But then there's also this thing about society, and then like the what your tribe, like your who you grow up with and how they raise you and who they are. It can be seen as somewhat of an essentialist path, being raised around a certain, you know, moral standpoint, like what is good, what is bad, and then also learning from other people's experiences,
Yeah.
like parents and siblings and family members. But I'd say that mainly it would be through experience. At the same time, stuff like, I don't know how you would learn. I was having this discussion recently, like how would you learn to have empathy, for example? Like, is that something that you learn through experience? Because some people seem to have more, some people seem to have less, or more about certain things than other things. But yeah, I mean, it's a it's a forever discussion, that one, for
Yeah,
sure.
which is what I like it, because for me, I would speculate that we have an aspect of us which is foundational and is sort of our baseline composition, which I believe would only naturally be the combination of the information that's within the DNA of your parents at the time of your conception,
Yeah,
depending on the vitality of them at the time,
yeah,
and their characteristics and their moods and their energy, whatever, however you want to look at it. So that all goes together in whatever marvelous way, and then you pop out, and that's sort of your special mix, your original version of it all.
yeah,
Because even though your parents have other kids, they have it at a different time, at a different energy, different vibe, whatever. So they have their independence. So I think from there, then your certain chemical structure, whatever your flavor is, then creates different flavors with every other person's flavor. So basically, you're going to have a different way of interacting with every person because you're a different type of chemical. So when you talk about empathy, if you want to go there,
yeah,
and I guess what you're getting at, or at least the way that I'm understanding it, is what creates a person's level of each and every emotion and their emotional intelligence, or maybe even general intelligence, physical capabilities, all of that. I don't know. I don't think anyone can ever really
no
figure out how or why anyone has a particular
affinity for.
affinity for any of it, but you can definitely say that there is a common pattern that people do have affinities for things, and typically those affinities are connected to either because they've experienced that love, for example, or that empathy, or their lack of. And either way, the lesson in it is the importance of it, and that's where they gain a lot of the time there,
Yeah,
you know. So, as much as it is kind of hard to really figure out or calculate it, it's also pretty clear to see there's a pattern. So it's not too crazy of a concept to see that there is quite a hefty amount of existentialism in terms of whatever happens in your life
yeah,
definitely affects who you can become.
yeah. That reminds me of, there's this saying, like when when I was um, when I was studying anthropology, we had this class about archaeology, and there's always this debate about what makes us human. Like, when did we become the humans, like humans with a capital H? Like, when did we move from being Homo erectus, Homo sapiens to human? Like, how did we become that concept of reason and feelings and all of that stuff?
Yeah.
And there's this idea concept of, we moved on from being just an animal to becoming human when we cared enough for each other that when someone was sick or hurt, they weren't left to die. So you have evidence, you know, from thousands and thousands of years ago of bodies, of remains, where someone had broken a bone, broken a leg bone, or broken an arm bone, which had healed, and then they died years and years and years later after that, you know, injury, which shows that they were in a group that was strong enough and that cared enough for them that they could stop being useful to the group in terms of survival while still being kept in there. They weren't just like, oh, not useful anymore, see ya.
Yeah,
You know?
left for dead.
And that's like such an interesting concept to think about, like as an originator of human nature.
Do monkeys not really do that? Do they sort of, if you break something, or are you
Well,
left behind?
there's always this interesting conversation about monkeys. I know very little. I know very little about monkeys, but again, same thing. Monkeys are pretty fucking smart.
Yeah. Yeah, so I suppose there's an argument there to say that there's probably that trait within humans and things that are really close to being
Yeah.
human. So it's not a definitive trait, but it's a big contributing factor towards what creates that sense of community, or a sign of community, is when
Yeah,
you're willing to
exactly.
do that. And capability as well, you know, like you said, you have to be strong in order to be able to fend off something if people are injured, you know.
Yeah, but that kind of, like, to go back to what like this conversation is about, is that thing about human nature being tied to the fact that we are strong in our community, like we support each other,
Right.
and how that comes back to that of like, how have we moved on to that being the trait of humanness to where we are now, where it's definitely not that.
Yeah. I'd say that it's yeah.
It's a bit sad.
It is a bit sad. It is a bit sad. And it's because of the fact that we've somewhat forgotten that we actually dictate how this stuff operates. Realistically. It seems like a really out there idea, but the reason for that is because typically the things that people want to pursue are quite niche, you know? You might have something that garners a lot of attention, but it's pretty hard to get those things that so many people get behind that you can really make a change, you know? And so it has to be something that affects a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'd hope optimistically that something like this could potentially have that, you know,
Effect.
have that effect and have that quality. But yeah, it is a tough one. And I think timing is an interesting part about it too. I've mentioned this a few times, but you know, there were certain times where concepts like women voting or gays having rights to marriage or have children and all of that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
that people laughed about it, or you know, there was
It's
a lot
like,
of
this is ridiculous,
conflict, and
yeah.
so I also hold that in the front of my mind all the time too, and think, wow, you know, sometimes it's not even about the idea, sometimes it's just timing.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about in terms of people forgetting that, it's like that kind of came from us setting up a system that worked in order to supply people as individuals to get their own stuff, which is a really good thing, because then you don't have to, you know, constantly be providing for everyone in a way that means that nobody's ever getting exponentially more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And that's not, there's obviously nothing wrong with that. Everybody getting the same amount of stuff or a similar amount of stuff depending on the work they do or whatever. But that village mentality, it doesn't really work past a certain number of people.
Yeah.
But you can't also get to a point of complete and total, you know, food, water, and shelter being free, for example, like having that all around the world or within an entire country, that requires so many more people, or at least participation or infrastructure or whatever it might be. And that's the thing about timing. But before you get to that point, there's this big ass gap, which is where has been the last, 2,000 years, you know? We started with religion, and then that was sort of everybody's main thing. And then as time has gone on, and science and all of these new ideas have been introduced, and the world's become so self-aware, and technology's connected everybody, it's an understandable thing that we sort of had to allow people to spend their own time building their own stuff in order to come together at this level and at this scale without bumping into each other as much, you know?
Yeah.
People not stepping on each other's toes all of the time. But now
Yeah.
we're starting to again, and so everybody's like, capitalism's fucking shit, and it hasn't done anything, and it's the worst thing in the world. It's like, yeah, it's not great because we've overdone it massively. Like we've achieved so much and not really acknowledged it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's not to say that there aren't reasons why we've had it in place for so long, you know? It's because it had to serve for that interim.
Yeah, it served a purpose, and like it start it's a neutral thing, it's a concept.
Yeah.
It's a concept, and whatever you do with a concept, that's what you make of it. Like, it's the same thing with socialism. People have many things to say about socialism. That's critiquing it, and people are pro all of that, and same thing with capitalism and a bunch of other things. But if
All the isms.
all the isms, very interesting stuff. But I feel like nowadays, I think it's in a way this thing with like not everybody having to make their own food or find their own shelter, like build their own shelter and all of that stuff. That is, I think they're skills that are very important to have as human beings, but also not having to do that all the time leaves space for stuff like this.
Yeah, people to do other stuff.
Creation, whether like research, creative thinking,
Science.
art, science, all of the other things that, like talking about, before with women liberation and all of that stuff. Like, one of the things with women liberation was that for the longest time, and still to this day, women are stuck in the home doing, unpaid labor.
Yeah.
And there's this thing about, when you're at work and not at home, you're not doing the unpaid work that you should be doing at home, which you have to do all the time. You have to make food for yourself all the time. You have, or for your family, you have to clean after people, after yourself. You've got to like pay the bills, and you've got to do this and do that, and it's like this constant labor. Which now with technology and all of those advancements that we've done, we have more space to not have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, we have space to actually thrive as intelligent beings, which, and it was the same thing even before that. You think about in the Middle Ages or antiquity and all of that, when you had the peasants and the serfs, and then you had the lords, and then all they did, the peasants and the serfs, and then later on, like the people working in factories, all they did was just produce that one thing, just work on that one thing, not even for themselves, at the end of the day. And so you are in that, when that's all you have to do, like, that's
It's like dulling you.
yeah, it's dulling you.
Yeah.
And it's dulling society. It makes everything a bit
Meh.
grey.
Yeah.
When only the elite have space and time to think and create and make art of, it's actually really reductive, because they're only like that much of all of us.
Yeah.
And And their thoughts aren't really exciting, are they?
Well, they're definitely limited because there's less people doing it. I think
Yeah.
I believe in a sense of interconnectedness,
Yeah.
and I think that when more people have the space and time to think about creative things, more exciting creations are made. You know.
100%.
So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's totally inefficient to have a smaller population of people experiencing life in that way.
Yeah.
But facilitating more people having life in that way, this is sort of the foundational step towards that, really.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not the end of the story, but it seems like it. It seems like such a huge thing that, you know. But I would love for there to be a day where kids are like, "What? You used to pay for food? Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Why
Yeah.
would you do that?" That'd be awesome.
Actually, I was brushing off on that thing that I was telling you about. So
What was that? Oh well, yeah. Tell me.
it was in the 1930s
Yeah.
in Spain. There was a civil war happening.
Okay.
There was this whole thing with a monarchist-backed dictatorship similar to Mussolini and stuff like that, but was happening late 1920s, early 1930s in Spain.
Okay.
And so you had this kind of civil war between that fascist, dictator-based side of things with Franco, and then you had the majority elected, you know, people that were more of that socialist, communist, liberal side of things. And so you had, people who were elected, and then this guy who was trying to take over, and he had the army and he was backed by other people. So it was just like a civil war, pretty much. And that coalition of that more socialist, liberal side of things, it was, again, a correlation. So you had, classic socialists, you had more centered minded people, but then you had communists, you had anarchists in there.
Oh yeah.
And there's this one region in Spain, in Catalonia, where it was, simplifying it, but it became the anarchist stronghold. And over there, about 70% of all of Catalonia was under that way of living. And they completely stopped using money. All of the factories, all of the farms became co-ops, community-based. And everybody was working like that. Restaurants, cinemas, still working, but just people stopped paying money for it. There was just, we're just going to make all the stuff that we need to be making so everybody can live together, and we're just going to produce what we need. And it worked for years. And the only reason why it stopped working was because it was in the middle of a civil war, and then the rest of the coalition kind of ate it up. So before they got, it's not a good ending. That Catalonia got sucked into the rest of the coalition and kind of had to go by the rest of their rules. And then later on, Franco won the civil war. So it's not a good ending. But for a few years,
There was some.
there was no money.
It was just working.
They were working, and they were still going again to the cinema, still going to the restaurants, and like still living. And they actually were producing better because they were on, the like socialist concepts at the time, which was like the 8 to 10 hour day, five day a week, which was not the case before, like at the time in Spain, like industrial Spain. The people were working 12, 14-hour days in factories, like in farms, farm hands with like 7-day weeks, It's like it was proper exploitation of the lower class. And then the lower class took it back, and they were like, we're so good at this, and we know we don't need to do all that.
Yeah.
but we can still produce. And because they knew what they could do and how they could do it in a way that didn't make them hate themselves, and they knew that they were doing it for their own community, not just to give to a boss that would just like get fat on whatever they were producing. It just became natural.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
People working for people, eh? I mean, yeah. But I doubt it's the only example of it either, you know?
No, it's
But it's
no,
a good one.
but
I appreciate you taking the time to
it's like it's a big one,
learn.
you know, like it's a more recent one, and that was throughout a whole region. It wasn't like one community.
Yeah,
you know,
not like a little village. It's a
Yeah.
big place. Wow. Well, I mean, I really want to be in awe of it all, but I just think that part of me knows that there's so many people that have designed systems and times where it's worked and stuff, and I think the thing that really interests me is what creates those times. What is it that does that? You know, what creates the bubble where people just go, "Oh, that's right. We're all here together."
Yeah.
You know, we're all
It's-
doing it.
It's
you know?
it's actually so interesting because like I was reading up on all of these concepts, like and how, because you know the rights that we have today, again, like vote for women, vote for, you know, the native peoples, gay people, etc. And then even just concepts that we think are so natural, like free healthcare. Again, that, you know, 40-hour week,
Yeah.
only working a certain amount of days, breaks, like contracts and all of that stuff. All of these things that we think are natural, they're concepts that only appeared in the last like 150 years.
Yeah.
And that is in like the amount of progress, social progress that was done from that time. Like it was a time where, you know, you think about the Industrial Revolution, it's like one of the most exploitative time for human beings ever. Like factories being created, kids working in mines, and like all of that stuff. Like it's insane. You think about all of that, you're like, what is this dystopia? What the fuck were we doing?
Yeah.
And all of that terrible, terrible, terrible exploitation, people could see it, and they were in there and like created unions, were like, this is not right. And just like that, how I feel like it's the anger about that, about
experiencing a work state like that,
experiencing
or work environment.
the that amount of like unfairness.
Yeah.
And, you know, we could take it back to, you know, what happened in the US with Luigi Mangione.
What's that?
Did you oh, it's that. So a few months ago,
Yeah.
this guy, Luigi Mangione, shot and killed the CEO of one of the main healthcare insurances in the US.
Yeah.
That dude, that insurance company was the biggest. So what they do in the US, it's such a terrible system anyway.
Yeah.
But what happened was people pay insurance through their work or privately or whatever. And so when they go to the hospital, hopefully insurance will pay for some of the exorbitant fees that they have to pay over there. But that particular insurance was well known for paying most of the care. So cancer treatments, for women, you know, refusing to help pay for, you know, because you have to pay when you go give birth in a hospital.
Yeah, everything to do with pregnancy, which is 9 months of bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then chronic illness and all of that stuff, which, that's why you pay insurance for. Like, why would I pay insurance for them not to help me pay my medical bills?
Yeah, right.
And so that particular insurance company was like the main, like one of the biggest one denying most care.
Right.
Like when you compared it to all of the other insurances, they're like, yeah, you'd see graphs and it's very clearly, crazy. And so Louis Dimengione, he was on there and he had a chronic illness.
Yeah.
And they refused his treatment. And then I believe someone in his family died also through something like that. And he went in and killed the guy.
Nice. I mean, I'm not saying I condone the behavior, but also, yeah, fuck.
I think it's...
Seems like a bit of a stitch up, and I doubt that guy had a bad life, while it lasted.
Yeah.
So...
But it's that thing of, obviously, it's, again, like, it's hard to officially, morally say, yeah, he was right to kill that dude. But at the same time, how is it possible that guy and the company that he was head of had the right and weren't being condemned morally and through the justice system for the amount of pain that they were causing and how many people that they let die.
Mm.
And the fact that it's still happening, and they're one of...
Yeah, a whole bunch of different insurance companies that do the exact same thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, I think we have, now that we've gained all of these rights and, most people can live somewhat comfortably, we forget that people made themselves explode for us to get these rights. Like, people went and shot politicians, people went and like set themselves on fire.
Yeah.
Like, people suffered
a lot
for us to gain rights altogether. Not that, it's hard to put to be morally,
Don't worry about being PC, just say what you feel.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's hard to be PC in that particular circumstance, but it's like, we've lost that, I think we've lost a bit too much rage. We've become really soft. A lot of people have become really soft.
Yeah.
It's it'll be fine. We'll be okay.
Yeah.
In 2 years, it'll bounce back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think that is? Just comfortability over time? And
I think so. I think it's, just becoming comfortable. And I couldn't give you an actual answer. I wouldn't be surprised that it's that thing about, we went through 2 major world wars, and then after that there was a Cold War where people thought that they were gonna get killed by an atomic bomb like every other month. So I think people's fears went someplace else.
Yeah.
And then from there, I don't know, just like becoming a bit more compliant.
Yeah. I think in a way, I don't know why this is jumping in my brain, but I feel at this moment, it's almost as if collectively we're kind of at a state where we feel as though we're just about at the end of the movie, like we're the good guys and we're trying our best, but we've had the world wars and all of that sort of stuff, and now all of those things happened and they were so significant that they then became history.
Yeah.
And then we had the party that we had after history, which was all through the 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and then 90s. It was like, the party was crazy. And then it's like, now the kids are partying. And then, we're 20 years from then, and now it's like, okay, everybody's been partying for a while. We all know how to party, but also some of us are just living now because people got old and stopped partying. And now we're just sort of in this weird, almost happily ever after, where we haven't quite figured out that, you know, everyone's come home and it's time to sort of just do that final little cog. But in the meantime, we just keep making movies and hanging out and, you know, distracting ourselves from...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of distracting because I don't know if we're still in a like. There's so much horrible stuff happening.
In the world?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Heaps.
and I think that we're at a point where because it's not like it's not happening to us, and we're not, you know, like getting drafted and sent like halfway across the world.
Mm.
There's this apathy of like
What's apathy mean? Means lack of understanding of feeling? Is that...
yeah,
Yeah, okay, sorry.
it's
Cool,
that
thank you.
it's that thing of like it's not happening to me, so it's not really my problem.
Right, yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're all cogs in the machine. Like if we let these things happen to other places in other countries,
Yeah.
why do you think that will be okay? Like they're gonna start, but then it means that, you know, it might start here or it might start there, and just like it's a trickle down.
Here's an interesting thought for you, because I must admit I'm pretty contrarian when it comes to the topic of helping third world and second world countries and stuff, and especially contributing to wars and all sorts of stuff like that. Like, and just, I don't know, just being in other people's business.
Yeah.
And the reason for that being is because what's the end goal of that? That we give them enough to be able to be in the same corrupt system that we are? That's the end goal? Is that the end goal? You know, it's like, oh, now that they've got everything they need, which, let's assuming that happens, that's going to take decades and so much money and all sorts of infrastructure. It takes generations. So by the time you actually do all that, fix all that sort of stuff, it's like, now what? Now they're just like us, you know?
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to be like, that's something we should contribute towards. It's like, let's fix us, make ourselves autonomous, and then it's so much easier for us to then build that world in the second and third world, because we can go straight to this infrastructure rather than going through all the levels that we've already gone through. Does that make sense? Like,
I see
I
see what you're talking about, and I can agree, but at the same time, I think it's the thing is, it's a problem that we created. Like
which problem? The third and second worlds?
Yeah,
Right.
whatever's going on over there, they are results of our bullshit. When I say our, I mean Europeans, of course. Through again the exploitation of the lower class with colonialism, and then you know, slavery, if we're thinking about Africa, but then, you know, exploitation of the soil and all of that. Like that's shit that we brought those problems there.
Yeah.
We brought those problems there. And the reason why these countries who, you know, have all of these beautiful resources are in such shit is because we've already put our hands in the fucking cake, like just through it. And I think in a way it is our responsibility to help where we can.
I definitely don't disagree with that.
It's more on that sense of like, we already fucked you guys over.
Least we can do is like...
Less that we can do is, you know, humanitarian aid, like support, you know, infrastructure building, and like all of that type of stuff, which a lot of countries do already, you know. But it is important to be critical of what that means. It's like, are you going to send soldiers? Because the moment you send soldiers over there, that is kind of reminiscent of something of what we already did that was really bad.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's the same thing with like, obviously taking the example of Gaza. Like the reason why this whole shit is going on number one, because European countries are giving Israel all of their fucking bombs. Crazy.
Yeah.
And still haven't stopped them for some ungodly reason. Anyway, and number two was because they put Jewish people there because they felt bad for throughout the Middle Ages and antiquity and all of that stuff, European country absolutely shitting on Jewish people.
Yeah.
All the way to obviously Second World War, where it was like the top of the top.
Oh yeah.
And suddenly European leaders were like, ooh, that was kind of our fault, wasn't it? And then like, oh well, we'll just make a little space for you over there with the other exploited people, but we kind of feel bad for you specifically. So you just go there.
Yeah.
And it like that's just the most insane, like it's just yeah, it's baffling really
Yeah.
that people would think that that would work.
I must say I have a lot of admiration for you and for anyone that can sort of keep up, you know? Because I can't. I really struggle. That's why I sort of just dipped out and came up with this idea.
No,
I was like, there's a lot going on in the world. I don't really know how to manage it, you know, or how it all started or what it all means.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up, you know?
It is so hard to keep up because there's so much shit happening all the fucking time. But yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with extending a hand ever in any type of situation.
No.
Giving the option as long when you're doing it with again like good intentions and you're not trying to get anything from that and you're not doing it with pity because I feel like that's the worst thing you could ever fucking do is
Have pity?
yeah.
I feel like there's worse things, but I understand what you mean.
But,
You're being hyperbolic.
Yeah. But that's one of the like if you're trying to help somebody but you're only doing it out of pity for them.
Yeah. But that's kind of what it is, though. You know? It's like it's not actually... I mean, it would benefit us eventually.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's what it is. It's like, wow, look at them. They're having a shit time. But anyway, it's not really the point. But, you know, in terms of, like, helping out other countries, I know in second and third world and all of that, I know I came in pretty hot there. I think that I have detached myself in a lot of ways from those sorts of issues in politics because I know how, or I feel, anyway, it's just how I feel. I find it very hard to feel responsibility. No, absolutely. Heaps of it. Heaps of white fucking privilege guilt over here. Fucking life. Yeah. But in terms of ability to do something about it, I feel very helpless.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of money. I don't have any resources. I'm just a dude in another world from there, and I do what I can to get by. Sometimes I get holidays, and I'm pretty grateful for all of that because it's good. But I don't know what I can do to help.
And that's
people in Yemen.
That's so fair. That is like, I think there's that is also an issue of like. I think in general, there's this idea of individual responsibility for things that we have absolutely no fucking control over. Like, individual responsibility about, you know, whatever's happening in a country, again, half a world away. Responsibility for the fact that there's people living on the street here. Personal responsibility for the fact that there's plastic in the ocean. Like, that's, as individuals who are not, you know, massive players in this game, it's actually not our fault.
Nah.
Like, I think it is important, coming back to that education thing, to keep ourselves informed and educated, and again, keeping a good intention, like still like wanting to help. I think that feeling of helplessness because you can't help is actually pretty healthy.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But I think in that sense, and again, we can connect this to free food, free shelter, free water. With the system that we are at now, big corporations have the keys to the fucking world. And they need to be
This actually comes up a lot, believe it or not.
Would you? Shocker.
I know. It's crazy.
What?
Tell me more, though. I love to hear about it.
Yeah. The big corporations need to be held accountable is what's going on. Is at this point, I think...
I'm going to get friggin' suicided, man. Somebody's going to... This comes up so often, and I'm like... And everyone's like, yeah, and as soon as they, oh, yeah, they're in control. It's like, oh, yeah, well, let's stop them. It's like, nah, this is not how it works. You can't do that. Why? Well, they just take everybody out. It's like, what?
I think it's just... That's the thing, is keeping people accountable. And, again, maybe not going all the way to shooting somebody in the face.
Yeah.
But I think definitely protesting, keeping ourselves informed, boycotting, money speaks in this world that we're at. Like, our money is our biggest power.
Definitely.
As, you and I, individual people. So one of the important things is where we're going to spend it.
Yeah, it's crazy that you say that. Louisa said a similar thing. She said, money's your vote.
Yeah.
Same concept, but yeah, where we spend it.
Yeah.
She was talking more as an individual, but we as a collective is kind of,
as a collective, as an individual.
Yeah.
Like, it is our strongest, it's our strongest power, really, at this point in time. Like, refusing to, for example, like, places like Shein, Temu, who have been proven to be some of the most exploitative industries ever, like what they do to these poor people, and again, like things getting brushed up under the carpet, like with the...
Because it's so cheap.
Yeah, because it's so but at the same time, like, do we need that?
No, not at all.
Like, and yeah, and then, like, obviously no one is perfect, but I think it's something that it's like, as adults living in our world with other human beings, we can't just like refuse to take responsibility for certain things. Like,
where do you sort of rank importance of responsibility in terms of generally taking care of yourself, and then, like, family, friends, in the world? Like, do you sort of believe in that structure of it, going, yourself first in terms of your well-being, and then work out from there?
Yes and no. It depends on what.
Right.
It would depend on what. I wouldn't say so. I mean, obviously, I live here by myself, and like, I don't have family around me. So, and I don't have a lot of money. So, I think at the moment, I'm prioritizing myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm the one making the money also.
Yeah.
But then, like, gifting is fantastic. Like, again, doing stuff like hosting, like having people over and making food, or like bringing something to your friend, like make something for your friend, or like that. Everything is, like calling your parents and like talking to them. Like, all of these things are so important, and they're things that you can give easily.
And all of those things contribute towards this place being a really cool place to be.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't underestimate how much giving can contribute towards, and it's not like a state of responsibility you have to be locked into it. It's more like an awareness of the small things that you do can really add up to making a big difference. And I think it's very true. Very true.
And also it contributes to that concept of, we're a community, we're a tribe. and like being able to, it's important to keep strong ties, you
Yeah.
know, like, and doing things like that, not just, you know, gifting physical material things, but giving your time.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the most valuable resources, which I should say thank you for coming
Well, no,
and being
thank you
here
for
today.
having me.
It really means a
Thank you
lot.
for having me.
Yeah, I remember we actually spoke about it around the time that Louisa was here, and then
Mm.
she was going away to Auckland, so I was like, got to grab her before she goes. And then when I saw you the other day, whatever day it was, you
Yeah.
know, you were in the same area, so I'm always cruising past and seeing you walking to work or something like that.
Yeah.
And gave you a toot, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's right, the meaning to ask. So yeah, I do appreciate it, and it's
Ah.
proof of the value of that time. You know, this is a contribution towards this whole conversation. You're an extra branch on a tree that's now extends, and everybody that knows you will now have the opportunity to learn about this, and
Yeah.
that's really special to me, and so thank you.
Yeah, I and it's special to me to be able to have these discussions, because I think, again, being able to educate oneself, and education also comes through sharing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like stuff that you know, I don't know, and like stuff that I know you don't necessarily know, and doing that, it's gifting each other that also. And I'm very grateful to be able to do that, and I'm grateful for your work with all of these other people, because
Thanks.
that's just projecting it to even more, as you're saying, like extra branches. But yeah, all of that just makes us stronger as a community, which I think is always a good step towards getting things for everybody.
Hard.
You know, like,
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting community full of people by the,
yeah,
as the years go on, it's going to be really intriguing to see
yeah.
the mix, and to think about this now. It's really cool to imagine what it'll be like in 10 years to go, oh, I
Oh
was on that
my gosh,
podcast. I remember that.
yeah, and it's like, it's, you know, it's really cool. Like, all of it is like really amazing. Being able to chat about these important topics is really amazing. Again, I feel like we underestimate ourselves. Like, people underestimate themselves mentally a lot,
Yeah, big time.
and they shouldn't, because as we were saying at the start, like, we all experience life differently, and all experience is valid.
There's also an argument there to say that the average level of intelligence now is so much smarter than the average level of intelligence used to be. People's abilities, just in general, of what they can do that they might consider to be very minimalistic, or their general knowledge. But the amount of stuff that people consume in terms of information now, it's pretty uncommon for me to find people that I talk to that don't really have any scope of what I'm talking about, you know?
Yeah.
And the thing is even if you have no technology and you've never done any of this, if you are alive, you need food, water, and shelter. So it's pretty easy to connect with people on it. You know, it's very relatable, but
Yeah.
not everybody has the capacity or the confidence to want to come and have a chat. Those are two different things in terms
True.
of actually recording it or just
Yeah.
having a yarn with people, which quite often I do. It's quite funny actually when I pose it to people that I know are a bit nervous about it, and they kind of go, "Oh yeah. Oh, do you not have many people?" And I'm like, no, there's heaps. And they're like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, you don't have to do it. They're like, yeah, no, I don't think.
Oh, that's so cute.
I don't think
That's
I'd
so
want to do it.
lovely.
Yeah. And that's okay. It's all good, because it's not about, having to
Again,
put people under that pressure.
yeah. Again, like, just having a conversation one-on-one is like so satisfying. Like, and
meaningful.
and meaningful, and super meaningful. Like, again, going to university, and I know it's not the same here, but obviously in France, university is almost free if it's public university. Like,
It's awesome.
yeah, a year for a bachelor's in public university, and it might have changed now, but it was under €300 for a year.
It's like $600.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And that's just for the whole year. And going there, like, I moved out of my parents' place straight straight away at 18 to go to uni, and like I met the most interesting, intelligent people from a bunch of different backgrounds, like passionate and like aware, and just like being surrounded by that. Even though I don't think it's not like I was sheltered and like I didn't have opinions and stuff like that, but just like being surrounded by so many people who were so steadfast in what they believed and knew what they were talking about and were passionate to learn and to learn more and as much as possible. That was such like, it just opened doors wide open in my brain, like just being around that. And you know, there's always this thing of a bit of competition of like, well, if they're going to do it, I'm also going to go and like read this really obscure author and like get like they bring up this really interesting topic of conversation. I want to know what they're talking about, and just like you just motivate yourself to like open your mind to as many things as possible. At least that's how it goes for me. Like I love conversing and like sharing all of that information, because it's just like making little notes in my brain, like, oh yeah, I should check this out, and like listen to that, and like that's really cool. And like just being able to like add things is, and that's why I also love being able to do this, is like that's great. Just being able to throw it out there but also soak it in. It's like perfect.
I think you've killed it. I think we've done a really good job, to be honest. I think we might wrap it up.
Yeah.
And before we do, I always ask if people have a little piece of advice for the people out there.
Oh man.
No pressure. If not, it's not like a mandatory thing, but I like to see whether anything bubbles up spontaneously, you know?
I think it's don't be afraid of your own mind. Like we're so bright. Like look at what the things people do. If we put our mind to it, we can definitely do whatever we want. Like
Amen.
Like again, building something, creating, making art, all of these things are just like at fingertips away, I think.
That's a doozy. That's a real good one. I like that. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Juliet.
Oh, thank you.